Aaron Brightman. This episode, as always, is brought to you by Knights of the Raritan, the Rutgers NIL Collective. Knights of the Raritan provides a unique way for Rutgers athletic programs to be successful in the ever-changing NIL environment. Become a member of the Knights of the Raritan for a chance to win giveaways, unique experiences, event invites, and more. Subscribe to their free newsletter. The link is in the description of this episode, and help Rutgers student athletes with NIL. So today's episode, we're going to focus on national coverage for both men's basketball and football. First, we're going to talk about tying into a theme. I've talked about Rutgers men's basketball now being in the national spotlight and how they may be covered. I wanted to bring up an example of that I thought was less than satisfactory. And then also wanted to jump into Phil Steele, his projections for Rutgers football, his rankings on certain positions for the Rutgers in the Big Ten. And just some overall thoughts. I thought, listen, he's an example of a national media person that gets it, that is extremely thorough. I think he talks to every head coach for like an hour. He mentions how he always talks to Schiano. So we'll get into that. But first, basketball, and I think it's going to be fascinating to watch not only perception, opinions, takes on the program and this 2024-2025 version of Rutgers men's basketball, but it's going to be how well are they covered? Because let's be honest, they haven't been in the national spotlight. They haven't been relevant in a very long time. Arguably haven't ever been on a national scale in the modern era. So how well are they going to be covered from a detailed standpoint, accuracy? And there was a piece in The Athletic, and it's a great source for sports information. I subscribe to the app. I really like The Athletic. So I'm not trying to shock jock slam them or anything, but I just think it's a relevant example of a lack of thoroughness into the program that in relation to this article didn't give a fully accurate, I think, documentation of their assessment. So they did transfer portal rankings by tiers. Rutgers was tier 3. There were 5 tiers total. No complaints to me in that regard. You could listen. I think what they did in terms of fit, in terms of surrounding the stars of the 24 class, Jeremiah Williams, I think they did a good job. I don't think they did a great job. I think they did a good job. But comparatively to some other Big Ten programs, I get it. They brought in bigger names. They brought in more proven stars, and that's fine. So just wanted to run through it. In terms of the additions, they got all 4 transfers coming in correct. In terms of departures, they actually forgot about Antoine Woolfolk, who transferred to Ohio. They obviously have Gavin Griffiths, Nebraska, Cliff to Alabama, Mowat to BYU, Simpson to St. Joe's, and Antonio Troll to Howard. Minor glitch, whatever, fine, is a miss, but we'll move on. So in terms of what they're talking about, pretty generic and not completely accurate. So, of course, they start with Durkak because they're just looking at player of the year, defensive player of the year. Durkak is a fine player, and I think he's going to be an important piece, no doubt. From an offensive perspective, stats-wise, he's the least noteworthy, in my opinion, of the 4 transfers in terms of Acuff, Martini, and Hayes. So let's first off with Acuff. Just factually incorrect in terms of his average last season. Acuff averaged 14.3 points at Eastern Michigan 2 seasons ago. Last season, he averaged 21.7 points and was the 8th leading scorer in the country. So that is a noteworthy fact that you would think if you're going to evaluate transfers, you would have that right. So that was a big miss. In terms of Martini, they were right. In terms of Durkak, the thing I actually thought was interesting was the Athletic mentioned his on-ball defense. Durkak played mostly in his zone. So rarely was in man-to-man. Yes, he was very good at swarming to the ball. He was disruptive in the passing lanes. He had, high steal rate. But in terms of on-ball pressure, he wasn't going man-to-man most of the time. So I just feel like that is a little bit, I guess my question for Durkak is how can he adjust from being in a mostly zone defense to now defending Big Ten guards man to man. That is the biggest question mark for Dirk, even more than offense, because I don't think Dirk is going to be asked to be a top four scorer on this team. His ability to distribute the basketball, he has a high assist rate. He turned it over quite a bit at Merrimack. Can he handle the ball? Can he be a reliable ball handler? Can he find his teammates? He's very good penetrator. He's very good at free throw rate in terms of getting fouled and getting to the line. He was a fairly good free throw shooter, a little bit over 70%, so about average. But none of that, like, that wasn't mentioned. So I just felt like the take was pretty vanilla and kind of, basic. Again, Acuff totally wrong. And then Hayes shot 40% from three in the West Coast Conference and not even mentioned. So again, I'm not trying to, I'm not, this isn't a get off my lawn moment. I know maybe I sound a little grumpy to some, but it's the middle of June. We're looking for things to talk about. I do a mostly daily podcast, and I thought it was something that struck me as a little annoying. That you're going to rank them in tiers, and your information's kind of not really great. Again, not really upset about the tier, but if you're going to discuss things, just be accurate. So again, this is kind of like my warning to Rutgers fans in terms of, national media takes. Some are going to be better than others. Some are going to be misinformed. I think the big names, the best college basketball writers out there are going to be pretty thorough and do their homework. But it's going to be very interesting. It's going to be a wild ride for many reasons. But the media coverage and the media scrutiny, the attention, it's all going to be part of the roller coaster season that we're going for that hopefully is a lot more ups and downs. But wanted to mention that. And now with football, Phil Steele is a tradition. His magazine, now he's got an online version, of course. But especially I always felt like, I always found it in the airports or like a 7-Eleven or Wawa, finding Phil Steele's preseason magazine for forever. So well respected and absolutely someone that does their homework, and a lot of interesting takeaways in terms of what he has for Rutgers football here. And I'm going to give Brian Fonseca credit from NJ.com. He did a whole summary. So I am using kind of his article in terms of some notes that I thought gonna kind of popped out. So we do here, we cite, we give credit. Nothing, grinds my gears more than when people don't give other people credit. That's, my 2 cents. So I'm definitely getting a little ranty now. But anyway, talking about Phil Steele, overall, pretty positive preview for Rutgers football. In terms of Big Ten power rankings, 18 teams, he has them eighth. That is, I think, attainable. It's not overly optimistic, but I think it's fair, to be honest. I know they have the easiest schedule. I know we're all hoping they can get 10 or more wins. But, he talked about his probability being, in terms of his projections. Phil Steele said he lists Rutgers, this is per Fonseca, among the 24 teams he projects to finish with an equal or better record than last season. According to Steele, 81% of the teams he's predicted to make that leap in the past 19 years, 243 teams out of 301, have ended up doing so. A year after going 6-6 the regular season, he says his power ratings project Rutgers to finish with an 8-4 record this fall. So that's fair. I think that 8-4 record is what a lot of fans hope is the floor, which honestly I think is maybe a tad optimistic. I think, yes, 6-6, worse than 6-6 would be a very, very disappointing. It would be a disaster with everybody coming back. I think 7-5. It's listen. There's a ton of toss-up games. We've talked about it. We'll talk about it more. 8-4, I think, would be very solid. You'd win more toss-up games than you lost. You had improvement from the year before. You didn't take that major leap, but you're a better team and you're a top half Big Ten. So 8th place in an 18-team Big Ten seems pretty solid. That's what Phil Steele projects. Now, in terms of his reasoning, he talks about the offense. He cites quote unquote improved quarterback play, veteran offensive line, underrated running backs. Projects 29.1 points per game, an improvement of 5.9 points per game from last season. In terms of quarterback play, yes, we all hope Ethan Kaliakmanis is better than Gavin Wimsatt. Improved quarterback play, but to what degree? Can he make his own personal development? Because kind of showing up and being what he's been, yeah, he's going to be better than Wimsatt, but is he better to the point where he's going to elevate the offense significantly? Probably not. But if he could take his own development another step forward, another level, right, then you're looking at 2 levels better than Wimsatt. And hey, let's get crazy. If he can complete over 60% of his passes, he's going to be 2 levels better probably. And then you're 3 levels better than last year. And then you're really cooking with gas. So we'll see. Obviously, short yardage situations, their ability to complete short yardage passes in first down, I think, is a real key to the offense taking a step forward. Obviously, completing some passes downfield is huge as well. So how well can Kaliakmanis do that remains to be seen. Veteran offensive line, that's true. How much can they mesh and take a step forward from last year? And then it's interesting, he says underrated running backs because in terms of his, and this is Fonseca pointing out, position group rankings, Steele has Rutgers ranked 8th in the Big Ten, 34th nationally. So, and I don't know the 7 backs he has or 7 schools he has ahead of them. And obviously it's running backs, right? But Kyle Monungai led the Big Ten in rushing. And the running back group is 8th with a healthy Sam Brown back. I don't know. Seems a little low to me. That's my one gripe with what Phil Steele had. And that's okay. He's not going to be perfect. Still love you, Phil. But I think that was a little low. 34th nationally. Again, maybe we're higher on Sam Brown, or I'm higher on Sam Brown than obviously he is and other people are. But I think that he's going to respond well. And I think, I do think Rutgers is going to pass more to the running backs, and I think Gabe Winovich is a guy that could show up in the pass game. And I think that, that's going to be something that Rutgers can do more with Kaliakmanis. And that will improve their position group as well in terms of the production, in terms of their efficiency. So we'll see. Other comments, notable things said in terms of the defense. Steele says with 8 returning starters, Steele, quote unquote, the Rutgers defense should be among the top Ds statistically in the Big Ten. Makes sense. Quote unquote, Rutgers does not play any top 5 teams in the Big Ten. They have 5 Big Ten home games. It's Greg Schiano's best team since he returned. And they have the league's best schedule. When he says best schedule, he means easiest. He has it ranked 61st nationally. And they were 11th last year in his preseason projections. Reason for optimism, no doubt. Going back to position ranks, it's very interesting. In terms of quarterback and receiver, he has him 15th in the Big Ten, not included in the top 68 nationally. Running back 8th, offensive line 7th, linebacker 9th, defensive back 7th, defensive line 11th, special teams 5th, coaching 8th. I think defensive backs, when you talk about that secondary, I think they should be better than 7. So I have some gripes with running back and defensive backs. Defensive line at 11th, they have to improve their depth. They need some more contributors there. I think the top end talent on the defensive line is very good, but they need more of it. So I'm not going to have any gripes about that. 5th in special teams, I like that. 9th, I mean, listen, Powell coming off an injury. If you count Teray in the mix, I think Moses Walker's do. I think they could be better than that, but I understand why they have that. And I think, receiver-wise, 15th, they could be better. He does, quote unquote, say they should have their best numbers in years. So optimism there. In terms of the offensive line, quote unquote, Steele says this is the best O-line since Schiano returned and has 123 career starts, but not yet the level of dominance he covets. So question marks there. But overall, listen, the offense is going to determine the ceiling of this team. The defense is going to determine the floor. Can they improve? Can they be as good as last year? If the defense takes a step back, that's where I look at 6-6. It's still possible. Like to sniff at the fact that Rutgers isn't going to go 6-6 after they did it once in the last 10 years, 9 years in the Big Ten. Obviously, 2014, they went 7-5, but that was an eight league game schedule, not 9. And now with the Pac-12 and a lot more different styles, it's going to be interesting. The other thing that I liked about Steele's preview is he talks about where Rutgers players stand in the NFL draft picture. Not counting special teams, he had 5 players ranked in the top 25 of their position ranks. So Tyreen Powell, inside linebacker, ranked 11th. Mohamed Toure, outside linebacker, ranked 12th. So again, that's kind of interesting that he has them ranked that high, but the position group in the Big Ten, he has them ranked 9th and 29th nationally. But you have 2 linebackers ranked in the top 12 of their respective positions. Anyway, not being overly critical, just pointing out. Kyle Monungai is the ranked 19th running back. Gus Zolinkis, 19th center. Shaquan Loyal, 25th free safety. Scott Longerbeam, 33rd with cornerbacks. Flip Dixon, free safety, 34th. Aaron Lewis, 55th on defensive end. Holland Pierce, 65th. Offensive tackle. I think Holland Pierce, better than that. I think his draft projections is going to be better than that. But overall, as a Rutgers fan, have to be pretty happy, I think, where Phil Steele projects Rutgers an 8-4 finish, 8th in the Big Ten. Would you sign up for that right now? I don't know. I don't know if I'd sign up for it. I think I would be okay with if that's what happens. Probably better than okay. But I wouldn't sign up for it. I'd take my chances. I think they can do better. I think they can do worse too. So it's going to be a wild ride. It's mid-June here. It already feels like the dog days of summer with the heat wave that we're in the Northeast. I'm not sure where everyone is listening or watching from. I see the analytics. It's kind of all over, which I appreciate. But yeah, if you have any ideas for topics that you want me to cover, and I'm working on some kind of out-of-the-box ideas and things that, maybe aren't current about this current team, football and basketball. I do want to cover baseball soon. They've added a lot of transfer portal guys. Still searching for a pitching coach. Donnie Pritzloff officially is leaving for Columbia. I mentioned that the other day. So we have some of that to talk about. I have more men's hoops to talk about soon, later this week. So lots to talk about right now that's currently relevant. But also, there's lots of things we could cover also. So if you have any ideas, shoot me a note, DM, email, whatever, because this is a mostly daily podcast, pretty much averaging 4.5 podcasts a week. Again, it's not about quantity for me, it's about quality. I'm not going to worry about, but it's just I'm constantly churning out ideas. And honestly, there's been a lot of news to cover. So I hope you enjoy my content. I really appreciate everyone that listens and watches, and all the positive feedback I get. And hey, any constructive criticism, I'm open to it. We're going to go through this journey together. We are going through this journey together. We're 2 months out from things getting really intense and just really exciting with football and basketball and all the other sports. Women's basketball is back now. An intriguing roster put together by Colcrease Washington entering their 3rd season. So plenty of Rutgers stuff to talk about. We'll talk about it here quite a bit on the Scarlet Faithful podcast. Thanks so much for listening and watching once again.